There's an alternate reality where everything I say in this video comes to fruition and Tua Tagovailoa turns into a journeyman quarterback, while Tom Brady is one of the most dominant minority owners to ever play for a NFL team. And all of that gets sabotaged by Brian Flores' lawsuit, all because of one poorly timed mistake by the owner of the Miami Dolphins. This story is absolute insanity, but I'm going to preface this video by letting you know I am unsure how much of this is true. Regardless, it is a very fascinating story, and I figured we'd make a video on it so we could discuss it, because if this were to happen, my mind would have been blown. And there were multiple rumors that were being tied to this. Now, before we get to the content, we're back on for $500 giveaways. We're giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. And in addition to that, I want to let you guys know I have a Discord community. The link to that is in the description down below. If you ever felt like coming up to me and telling me that the Dallas Cowboys stink straight to my face in a digital manner, this is the way to do it. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! You might be wondering, why am I so energetic today? And that's because I just had the greatest nights of sleep in my entire life, and that's thanks to Blissy. If you don't know what Blissy is, they are a company that creates these incredible pillowcases designed to give you better skin, better sleep, and better hair. Each pillowcase is made out of 100% mulberry silk, which in my opinion is absolutely crucial, especially if you're a person that has night sweats like me, because mulberry silk is moisture wicking and can reduce hair breakage by 43% while you're sleeping because of how smooth this bad boy is. All I'm gonna say is last week I was sleeping horrifically, getting about 5 hours of sleep per night. And then the moment I got this package 2 days ago and I swapped my pillowcase, I started sleeping 9 hours a night. Blissy silk fibers are less absorbent than cotton, which is kind of game changing, especially if you have a pillowcase that looks like this. If you have acne especially, you could understand that those oils getting on your pillowcase could be contributing to your acne. And right now, when you go to blissy.com/microphone, or just click on the link in the description down below, you'll get 30% off of your order and free shipping. Get your energy back, sleep better, and even improve your hair and skin with Blissy silk pillowcases. That's BLISSY/microphone. Or just click on the link below to have the code automatically applied to your order. And thank you, Blissy, for being today's sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, typically whenever a NFL team decides to fire a head coach, there's usually a contingency plan in place, unless if the head coach was so asinine and terrible at his job, then at that point, the team would probably fire him and wouldn't mind taking a little bit longer to find their next head coach, primarily because they believe that any replacement candidate would be better than said head coach. In the case of the Miami Dolphins, on January 10th, 2022, they fired their head coach, Brian Flores. Now, it took them almost a month later to find their replacement for Brian Flores in Mike McDaniel. This is nothing against Mike McDaniel. He seems very well spoken as a head coach.
Something very quick to end on: kill, kiss, or marry your coaching tree. Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay.
Start with Matt. I'd kiss him because he's most endearing.
The eyebrows?
Yeah, I would marry Kyle because I've spent the most time with him, so I should marry him. And I would kill Sean because he just was the last team that I played and he beat me.
And I think for the path that they decided to take at the end of the day, Mike McDaniel was the right head coach for the Miami Dolphins. But in this instance, it seems like the choice that they made with going forward with Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa wasn't their plan A. And when you read what their plan A was, your jaw is going to drop to the floor. So let me take you all the way back. A few months ago, Tom Brady announced his retirement very shortly after losing to the Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round of the playoffs last year. Now, if you watch that game, it seemed like Tom Brady could have potentially won if he had a little bit more help on the offensive side of the ball. But bear in mind, this was a game that he played without Chris Godwin, without Antonio Brown, and while it did look like he was about to come back at the very last moment, by the end of the game, the man looked absolutely exhausted, and the question loomed over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers whether or not Tom Brady was going to return. Tom Brady would then retire, and what's interesting is right before free agency about a month ago, Tom Brady would unretire. Now, the very base surface level reason as to why Tom Brady felt the urge to retire and then decided to unretire was the fact that he wanted to spend more time with his family. Now, there's a little bit more of a sinister reason behind everything, and I just want to preface all this by saying I am unsure how much of this is true, but regardless, it makes a very interesting story. If you go back to the initial lawsuit between Brian Flores and the NFL, one of the major sticking points that Brian Flores made was the fact that the Miami Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, tried to bribe him into losing games so the Miami Dolphins could draft Joe Burrow. It's clear that the theme of Brian Flores' tenure with the Miami Dolphins was the fact that they didn't have an answer for their quarterback situation, and they had multiple swings to get it right. The first swing was the NFL draft in 2019, where they had a pretty high draft pick. Prior to Brian Flores coming along, tank for Tua was a very popular saying amongst Miami Dolphins fans. But as time went on, eventually the owner of the Dolphins, Stephen Ross, wanted to pivot towards Joe Burrow, and there was this one rumor that Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert over Tua Tagovailoa. Ultimately, Tua was their guy at the end of the day. There were multiple other ways of acquiring a quarterback. Another player that hit free agency that offseason that eventually ended up playing in Florida was Tom Brady. If you recall, part of Brian Flores' lawsuit to the NFL mentioned how Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, began to pressure Brian Flores to recruit a quote-unquote prominent quarterback in violation of league tampering rules. Mr. Flores repeatedly refused to comply with these improper directives, and despite this, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, invited Brian Flores onto a yacht for lunch, and shortly after he arrived, Mr. Ross told Mr. Flores that the prominent quarterback was conveniently arriving at the marina. If you look at the free agency class of 2020, and also if you look at the language that Brian Flores would speak in back in 2020, you would see that all signs are pointing towards Tom Brady. As a matter of fact, Brian Flores says he agrees with Stephen Ross on the thought of why would Tom Brady come to Miami. He reiterated several times that he's happy with Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's important for the Dolphins to find a QB of the future, but it will likely come via the NFL draft. So the Miami Dolphins were very interested in Tom Brady. Now, what's really fascinating about this is back then, Brian Flores was apparently the reason why the Miami Dolphins weren't able to get Tom Brady. And it seems like once again, Brian Flores is the exact reason why the Miami Dolphins aren't going to be able to get Tom Brady, because it looks like what the Miami Dolphins plan was, allegedly, is they wanted to pursue Tom Brady this offseason once he retired, make him a minority owner in the Miami Dolphins, which is a remarkable opportunity for any former NFL player, and especially the greatest football player of all time. And then eventually they wanted to trade for his playing rights with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's the whole reason why Tom Brady retired to begin with. But it gets even crazier. Apparently, they were planning on pursuing both Sean Payton and Tom Brady for 2022. Now, the Dolphins declined to comment on this, which, if you ask me, that's even sketchier, because if you do get a report like this being put out there, wouldn't you think the team would come out and at least say that is absolutely preposterous and it's not happening? The fact that they're declining to comment means that they don't even want to touch this story altogether. There might be some truth to it. Now, by rule, the Miami Dolphins first would have to reach an agreement with the Saints as to potential compensation for hiring Sean Payton. Once an agreement had been reached, the Miami Dolphins would then have to work out an agreement directly with Sean Payton. As to Tom Brady, Dolphin sources contend that internal discussions occurred regarding the possibility of adding Brady as a minority owner, but that those considerations currently are on hold. The delay, per Dolphin sources, has nothing to do with the lawsuit. It's more about the uncertain status of Tom Brady's retirement from playing. Once it's clear that he's not coming back to play for the Buccaneers or some other team, the plan for selling a piece of the team to Brady could proceed. Now, bear in mind, this was done done at the end of February. This is a fairly out-of-date article, but we do have an up-to-date article on this that gives us a bit more information on what went down, and the details to this are absolutely insane, because I want you to bear in mind that Tom Brady being a active player while being a minority owner in a team, I don't think that's ever been done before in any sport at all whatsoever. I mean, you did have Michael Jordan, who was trying to eventually purchase a piece of the Washington Wizards, who technically was in the front office for the Washington Wizards before he decided to unretire and play for the Washington Wizards towards the tail end of his career, but he was never the owner of the Wizards when that happened. And once he eventually decided to retire again, the Washington Wizards said, "We don't want you in our front office anymore." But in this instance, get a look at this, man, because this is nuts. Apparently what stopped all of this, the Sean Payton being hired by the Miami Dolphins, the Tom Brady returning to his old division to face off against the New England Patriots twice a year, was the Brian Flores lawsuit. The Flores lawsuit was filed on the same exact day that Tom Brady announced his retirement, and that stopped that from happening. All of it. No Sean Payton, no Tom Brady, at least not in 2022. Now, what people are suspecting, at least what Mike Florio is suspecting, is whether Brian Flores timed his filing to blow up the Tom Brady Miami boondoggle. Many think that Flores decided to pull the pin on his civil complaint as a reaction to the accidental text he received from Patriots coach Bill Belichick congratulating the wrong Brian for landing the Giants head coaching job. Now, here's the problem, and this is a huge plot hole of the story. If Bill Belichick texted him and congratulated the wrong Brian for winning the New York Giants head coaching job, if you remember what happened, Brian Dable, a former offensive coordinator in the same exact division as Bill Belichick, the Buffalo Bills, got the New York Giants head coaching gig. He accidentally texted Brian Flores, one of his ex-assistant coaches, who ironically was also another head coach in his exact same division, but was at one point one of his assistants, congratulations for getting the New York Giants coaching gig. If Brian Flores was pissed off at Bill Belichick, wouldn't you think that he wouldn't try to avoid Tom Brady returning to the Miami Dolphins to face off against the New England Patriots twice a year? Wouldn't you think that he would want Sean Payton and Tom Brady to team up and Tom Brady to purchase a minority stake from the Miami Dolphins? This is the part where I'm very unsure whether I believe the story or not, or if I believe what they think that Brian Flores' intentions are. The article continues to say that maybe Brian Flores sued when he did to stick it to Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, keeping him from getting the outcome he coveted. The Patriots also benefited from this move since it kept Tom Brady out of the division when he became a free agent in 2020. Some of the Patriots were convinced he'd end up in Miami. So the article doesn't end up citing what were my initial thoughts. Now, there are some confidence in some circles that the Saints would have cut a deal to trade Sean Payton's coaching rights to the Miami Dolphins, and that the Bucs eventually would have to cut a deal to trade Brady's playing rights to Miami. Regardless, nothing was stopping Tom Brady going to Miami as a minority owner and or executive, except the landmark lawsuit filed by Brian Flores. Look at it this way, if Brady was simply going to Miami to be an executive, why did Brian Flores' lawsuit keep it from happening? Because that wasn't the ending point, only the beginning for Brady's broader business dealings in Miami. I honestly think, and I guess you could slap me in the face for saying this, but I think this is good for Dolphins fans. I mean, I think it's time to see what you have in Tua Tagovailoa, and although it would have been a very epic year to see Tom Brady team up with Sean Payton with the Miami Dolphins, and you got to see Tom Brady face off against the New England Patriots twice a year and potentially be the reason why the New England Patriots may not make it to the NFL playoffs, as cool as that may have sounded and as many storylines and content I would have got to make for you guys as a result of that, I think for the Dolphins, this is probably the better move. It's 1 year of Tom Brady versus trying to find your long-term answer at the quarterback position. But ultimately, I also feel like if Tom Brady was to become an executive, I don't think he would play football anymore. Primarily because I think Tom Brady needs something to scratch the competitive itch. And right now he has that in the form of football. I'm assuming that the next level after that would be becoming an executive for a NFL team. And maybe that is what he would probably do full time or part time in addition to his other ventures. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? Do you believe this story? Do you think it's true? I personally think it could be true. I don't know about Tom Brady suiting up for the Dolphins, but there might be an alternate reality where Tom Brady is throwing bombs to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle with Sean Payton on the sideline calling it. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.